Yeah, I think we are live. It's like there's always a 30-second lag. So like, don't really know what's really happening
That's
until
okay.
people are watching. But that's okay. Even if no one's watching, Sharla and I are going to have a great conversation today. Anyway, so welcome today. Who we have today is Sharla Watene. She is a marriage and family counselor and also a co-founder of Ahua Wellbeing. Before I introduce her further, if you're new to the channel, my name is Suki and I am a certified life and professional coach for people in New Zealand, helping them to find their purpose, gain self-confidence and self-love. And I used to be an agile coach in technological companies, helping teams and leaders to perform better. And these live Saturday sessions, what I want to do is actually showcase change makers and founders who have followed their passion, and to hear about all the challenges that they have and the courage that they need to do what they need to do. Because I really believe in the power of stories, because that is where we will find ourselves, relate and reflect on our experiences so that we can change for the better. So I am very honored to have Sharla Watene today to talk about how she has redefined her grind. So as I've said before, that she is a marriage and family counselor, and she has been doing that for the last 12 years. So she has a huge of experience doing what she does. And she does this because she is passionate about building sustainable communities in our society. And she's also the co-founder of Ahua Wellbeing, which is what we're showing right here on the screen for you to see. It is a non-for-profit for working moms that want to achieve work-life balance, because that is what Sharla Watene can relate to, because she is a busy mom with 4 kids. I don't know how she does it. And she as well as co-founding this non-for-profit organization. So she is very passionate about achieving that work-life balance. And today Sharla and I had a bit of like intro talk earlier this week, and I think we are in for a treat for seeing how she embraces herself and building the sustainable communities. So welcome, Sharla.
Hi. It's so nice to be here. And so just excited to talk to you, because you're right. This is something as you kind of said before, I think that this idea of being you and, your grind, like living your grind, to me, I just love that concept. And so thank you for having me. This is fun and exciting to share the morning with you. Yeah.
Yes, I know. It's a cold, sunny morning in Auckland for the both of us.
It is cold. I'm cold.
Yeah, I know. I feel like my nose is running a bit, and then I'm like, I actually don't have tissue, and that's around me, and I don't have a heater going on.
Well, and especially right now, like you can't have runny nose at all, because everyone will judge you, right? And but like this, like a couple mornings ago, I went to take my youngest to his creche, to his kindy, and my nose was running, and I was like, oh, they might not let us in, but I'm not sick. It's just cold. But I think there's so much like stigma and stereotype right now of like, if you're even a little bit sick, like don't go out your house, right?
Yeah, so, we're all cautious at this time of the year. And I think like that drives, as what we talked about earlier this week as well, that drives a lot of the anxiety. And it's hard. Anxiety builds up on anxiety. And before we get into such a deep topic like that, I just want to start with like a question so that our listeners can get to know you. Is that like, so that we can know like how have you redefined your grind? So we'll start with, what did you want to do when you grow up?
I always think that question's really tricky, because I think for me, it was always, well, for one, like just growing up, like I loved school. I've talked to a lot of people before about school, was just definitely my safe haven. Like I just felt so loved and welcomed. And I had so many amazing teachers growing up as a young girl who just really encouraged my passion for learning, and just really, so for me, I think as a young child, for one, education was always at the top of my list. So whether that's myself being an educator or just making sure that I was, what you said, like that lifelong learner, like always passionate about learning and doing education, to me, that was the top. And then whatever kind of fell after that was fine. It was more just, I want to be a part of education. I want to be a part of learning. So that's always kind of been a part of who I am. And then it shifts a bit, right? As you get older and you kind of maybe learn a bit about yourself. But no, for me, I think I was, definitely pushed towards, can I be an educator? Can I be a teacher? Something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, because what is so powerful about education that you believed in when you were when you were young already, that you were so into education? There must be something that you.
I think for me, it was more just the I don't know, like just being able to get into a new world. I was always a big reader, and home life for me growing up was not completely safe and calm, and so for me, like going into a book or going into that educational space where you could kind of transform yourself anywhere just by opening a book or just by having a conversation about something new and exciting, to me was beautiful and really just felt amazing. So I think for me, it was, that like being able to transform or even transport yourself into a new place, and doing that with other people, at school, or, like, I just loved that. I just felt at home. I think I don't know if there's any other way to describe it, is I just felt like I could be my true self. Really, like, I was so nerdy. I was such a nerdy little kid. And like, definitely if you talk to any of my siblings, like I was always like, they just teased me about how much I read or how much I was so into books. But I didn't feel that way at school. At school, that's like, oh, sweet, like you're reading, like this is amazing, like we're so excited for you. And so I think that's what it was. It was just, I felt really accepted in that place for me.
Yeah. In that place of finding yourself through books, through other people's experiences and learning. Wow, that's really powerful. And how has that journey continue on? Because like you found so much of yourself, of like transporting yourself, and now you're transporting other people really through the work that you are doing.
At least that's the hope, right? Like the hope that as we meet, we all kind of have this transformation. So are you asking kind of like where I went, like education wise, like how I ended up?
Yeah. How did you end up studying? Was that child therapy that you studied?
I started, in the behavioral sciences, understanding child development. And that really just came out of a place of really in the US, in the university system, you kind of get to pick and choose which classes will fill your general education requirements. Like it's not like one particular class. And so child development, I've always wanted to be a mom. I've always wanted to have a family. And so I was like, oh, of course, like I'll take child development. And I remember that was one of those aha moments of so many things kind of clicking or making sense to me, sitting in that class and learning about how we develop as human beings, right? Because you start with child development, but obviously like development is the lifespan. You're going to continue that through life, right? So learning how we develop and just so many of the different factors at play, to me, for one, like it was fascinating to kind of learn about it for me, right? And to kind of
scary,
right?
Yeah,
maybe scary, but I think for me at the same time, like I'd always maybe question where I fit in. Like maybe that's kind of a question I've had, is I always kind of felt like the outsider in family a little bit, because I was so bookish. I was so like nerdy. And so I always felt like a little bit of the outsider. But then to kind of see this development and see like we can all be unique individuals, depending on, like what plays into it, it to me, once again, I think was that reassurance of you can be you, and also you can develop into really anything you want to be, right?
Wow.
So I think that was, once again, I just had some amazing mentors and instructors along the way in education who really encouraged that idea that you can continue to develop into whatever you want to be if you put the time, if you put the effort, if you, kind of take that step forward. So,
Yeah. Yeah, because
yeah.
you talked about like quite a bit of the expectations of you as a young girl, what you're supposed to do, and then also like how you're in the books, and then like this place when you're studying that child development that you're really flourishing in that you're allowing yourself to be. That's really difficult. Most people find this super difficult. I do as well. Find it really difficult just to allow myself to be whatever I want to be without other expectations that I set upon myself or other people setting expectations upon myself. Yeah.
But I would say too, like at that point, right? Because I was quite young in that child development course, maybe like 18, just out of high school, right? And I think for a lot of women, myself included, like high school was definitely one of those times where, it's not cool to be nerdy. And like I know I got very caught up in, the boys, like I was so boy crazy and like, trying to become something that a boy would want, right? And I feel like that was definitely a very big part of my thought process of like, don't be Sharla, because no boy is going to want a smart, intelligent, very opinionated woman. Like, that's the ideas I'm getting from society, the ideas I'm getting from, the culture around me. And so trying to be like, not that, but I mean, like I said, like I've been that my whole life. Like, and so I think being back in that university setting, back in kind of that development class, kind of once again was like a restart of, hey, stop trying to be this other thing that one doesn't make you happy. Like it makes you completely miserable to try not to enjoy learning and try not to be intelligent, and like why are you trying to be something that you're not? Like just be you, and that's okay. So I think, like you said, like it's I wouldn't say like, oh, this is something I've had my whole life of like, oh, like I am me and I'm so comfortable with who I am and I'm so proud of who I am. No, I think that's a process that we do again and again and again and again. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And how has that, so from that point onwards of university, developing more of yourself and loving yourself, how has that process continued from there? Because I remember you saying that, like, gone out of university, gone into social work, and went, oh my gosh, is this what it is? That's basically the gist that I got from your story. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, well, no, you get out. I mean, I think I'm sure most people experience that, right? Like you go to university and you get all this like book learning, right? Like you can recite all of the theories, you can recite all of the research that's been done, and then you get in the real world. And if you're in the social sciences, right, like where you're actually working with people, it doesn't always fit. Like human beings are not black and white. Like there's a lot of gray area there in human behavior. And so not everybody fits the theories, not everybody fits the models of learning and behavior. And so you kind of get out there and you're like, okay, now I have like this wealth of information. But like I said, I think anyone that works in the social sciences, you get out there and you go, okay, now I actually have to learn people. Like now I have to learn how to work with people, not with books, which is a whole different kind of learning, right?
It is. The mind almost goes a bit like, oh, where am I going? The book says this. Do they fit into this stereotype or this behavior pattern? How do I manage that? Yeah. And what did you find as you were doing social work in the community? Is like, how different was it from what you've learned?
Oh, it was completely different. I think, well, and maybe to be fair, I don't know if it is completely different or just you just think that you're going to be able to go and have this magical ability to transform people's lives right away, and kind of like, oh, you're on, like, you get this degree and it means something and you've put so much work and effort into learning, right? And then you get out there and you realize really just how powerless you are. Like, they're very, very limited on what you can actually do, but that all kind, like understanding appropriate personal boundaries too, of like, what am I capable? What am I not? And I think for me, at that stage, like going into the workplace after my bachelor's, like I realized, kind of like you said, like, if we want to make our community sustainable, it has to be not just with the individual, like not just one-on-one with a child, not just one-on-one with, but looking at kind of more the macro system, and so if we're saying we want these children to succeed and to flourish, like we have to look at their system, like what is the whole family system doing? What is their school system doing? What is the community system doing to support healthy development, really? And so that was a big push for why I entered to do my master's in marriage and family therapy, because it is all based on systemic understanding of, do we exist in healthy systems? And if not, the individual is not going to flourish. We have to change the system first. And then we can sustain whatever change individuals have made. So that kind of was like like a bit of a shift of like, okay, how does change happen?
Yeah.
In my experience, it's got to be more of systemic than just individual for it to sustain, for it to stay put, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, because what do you think is so difficult about the change not staying put or not being sustained when it's only at an individual level? What is your insight on that?
Well, for me, I found if it's just at the individual level, right? Like you can, I mean, I could even like compare it a bit to like weight loss, right? Like let's say you yourself have done like this super healthy diet and you've been exercising really well and like taking really good care of yourself. But then in your home or maybe even your workplace, like if it's constantly filled with unhealthy foods and unhealthy behaviors, and like there isn't anything to keep you on course, so to speak, like there's too many other distracting factors. But if you as a whole system say, okay, our system is going to be based on healthy foods and healthy behaviors, and we're going to have that support, and we're going to change the way that we interact. Now, instead of spending time together watching TV as a family, we're going to go for a walk, or we're going to go play sport down at the field or something. Then that individual choice to change healthy lifestyle is now a part of just the system that you exist in. You're not pushing against it, right? Like you're all kind of working cohesively to keep it up. So I think it's more looking at, can we stay motivated if everything around us is not working in the same goal or working towards the same goal? And I found that that's just really difficult to do. Right.
Yeah. And I can really relate to that with my corporate coaching experience, is that when we want teams and individuals to do really well in an organization, the organization itself is saying something, but they're doing something else. And the whole environment is not helping the individuals to flourish. And change becomes really, really difficult. It's pushing uphill when it's that. But when two are working really well together, then we see a much more impactful and sustainable change, like what you said. So from there, of realizing that, and you've gone into working with marriages and family more, have you seen more of a shift from that end?
What do you mean? Like, and as far as like, you can see the system change quicker, or
are you seeing the change that you want? Because like I can relate to this. Like when we as meaningful as human beings that really want a purpose and to help people, we would try different things to help. And if we try one thing that is not working, we will try another thing to see if it's going to help the system or help this whole thing that we're trying to change. So you've tried working in the community as a social worker and helping people with their children behavior change, and that hasn't brought about the changes that you like. So now that you have shifted into a more marriage and family counseling, so I'm asking like whether that has helped you to make the change that you want to make.
Oh, for myself, that's a big question. I think, oh man, I think it's as a counselor, I think you're always kind of in check with yourself of I want to be authentic. Like I don't want to say, hey, all of you, do really well in your marriage and in your family, but for me, I'm fine. Like I'm exempt, right? Like it's got to be, I think it's become, and especially, then now having children and having a partner, and like it becomes more real of okay, like it is, like you said, like the daily grind, like it is like constantly coming back and saying, okay, like, am I actually living the things that I'm asking everybody else to do? Right. Which is really hard. It's really hard, right? Like it's one thing to, be able to be on the outside of the system looking in and going, okay, like if you just like change these things in your system, it'll be great. Right. But when you're actually a part of the system, and I'm not opposed to getting my own help. Do you know what I mean? Like I think you have to do that. You have to be willing to kind of step outside, because I don't think when you're that deep in your own system, you can actually see what works and what doesn't, even as a professional, right? Because it's too close to home. It's the same reason I won't ever do counseling with friends or family members or anything. You're too close to home. You can't be an objective observer. You're too biased, right?
Too triggering.
Triggering, but it just doesn't work the same way, because you do have your own personal bias, and you have to own up to that really and say, oh, okay, like I can't make a judgment call if it's going to impact my own functioning, right? Like it's got to be someone else. So no, yeah.
Yeah, and being the outsider to other people's family systems and helping them to change that, are you seeing that is more impactful than the work that you were doing before as a social worker in the community?
Oh, absolutely. I really I love working with families. I really love working with couples. I feel like that dynamic of being able to work through one's own personal insecurities or fears or negative self-beliefs, you can do that on an individual level, but doing it with your life partner really can make, in my opinion, one of the most lasting changes, and for better or for worse, right? So I think right, for better or for worse. And so really, like, I think when you work with couples, especially, I don't think there's any other particular relationship out there that's going to reaffirm for you those positive traits about yourself, or on the flip side, those negative traits as deeply, right? And so if you can help them to find that, you see just an incredible shift in the way that people function and their well-being and their mental health, and for me, in a much different way than when I work on an individual basis. It can be challenging to work with multiple people in the room, but the benefit and the long-lasting change to me is much greater than just one person working through it on their own. It's still great. Like individual therapy still works. I still promote it. I still do it. I do feel like, in my own view, systemic change, it just changes it in a different way, for sure.
Yeah, you really, I can hear it. You're really passionate about system change. And what has, like, from that point onwards, what have prompted you to change even more of the system, like starting with Ahua well-being? Like, that's another system change. Or is that that you're viewing it? I don't know how you're viewing this in your head.
Well, Ahua kind of came like you asked before about like, oh, like that's so amazing that you're like know who you are and like stick with you are. But I think Ahua came with my partner Mona. It grew out of more, I think, our own personal life changes, right? Like questioning who we are again, because I went through education, I started a career, and then I had some babies. Like you said, I had 4 babies, which is a lot of babies. And you have children, and you can't help but kind of lose sight a bit of who you are. I think even with the best of intentions, just the natural process of things. I mean, to keep a newborn alive, to sustain a pregnancy, you really do have to put off your own personal wants and desires and needs for a bit, right? Like, I want 8 hours of sleep. I need 8 hours of sleep. But those first couple years of life, it's not going to work that way. Like, it's just like someone else's survival depends on you not sleeping 8 hours a night. And so you do that 4 times over, right? Like, and like, I think with each child, I kind of put a little bit of myself to the side, a little bit more, because you kind of just, that becomes your new normal. That becomes the pattern that you exist in. And by the time, you get to the point of like, holy crap, like who am I? Right. Because I think, shortly before we started the concept of Ahua, I had a big life moment. My oldest turned 10. And it was, I think, just like anyone, like when a decade goes by, when 10 years, like when a significant amount of time goes by, you kind of have that moment of, wow, that's a long time. And for me, it was really a moment of not only where did the last 10 years go by, like how did that happen, but also what happened to me in 10 years? Like, who am I? And I'm changed. I will be forever changed having children. It's just going to change my outlook on myself and my outlook on life in general. But I realized kind of in that moment of, I had made this shift between just being Sharla, right? And everything that Sharla, it was like being back in that child development class and being like, why did I think I needed to be this other thing, like to, appeal to the boys or appeal to, high school standards? Like, and I think it's the same, why did I feel like to be a mother, I couldn't be Sharla as well, right? Like, it was like this conflict that I think I'd fought for the last 10 years of, okay, I can be mom or I can be Sharla, but they don't really exist in the same space. They've got to be separate. And so with Mona, who she's just so inspiring. If anyone that knows Mona, she's just incredibly inspiring to follow your passions and to follow them. She's sending us a virtual hug. I love you, Mona. But like, just to follow your passion in life, whatever that looks like. And so Ahua grew out of this idea of like, there should never be a place in my life where I can't be Sharla the mom, Sharla the therapist, Sharla the individual, all at one place. Like, they should each be strengthened and exist in the same place, no matter what I'm doing. And I think that's just a real struggle for a lot of us, whether you're a mom or not, is just to be fully your full self all the time, not just exist in parts or pieces.
Often we shy away or we hide certain parts of ourselves in order to be accepted by the wider society. And as you said, as your child turned 10, you're like, oh my gosh, who am I again? So you started that redefining process, which is it takes a lot of mental energy. It's hard. It takes a lot of self-love and self-acceptance in order to keep working on that, because I find there are parts of myself I really don't like, but in order to hold that really dear and to deliberately bring it in, embrace it with my warmest hug. It's hard work.
Right? No,
Yeah.
that reminds me, maybe you and I chatted about this before, but like I took personality test, I don't know, a few months ago. It's the Enneagram. I don't know if you heard the Enneagrams. It's really big on Instagram, and like I have a lot of friends who are just like diehard Enneagram fans right now. But I just as a professional, I've always kind of like steered away from personality tests because they're not always super research based, and they can be, you know, kind of controversial in some ways. And so my friend was like, just take this one, you'll love it, like please just take it. And so I took it, and like you said, like I took it, and what straight away, like it lists all of these things that are supposedly like part of my personality, and it's the same traits that come up with every personality test I've ever taken. But right, like, so maybe there's some validity there, but automatically, like, I start going like, oh, but I don't like that. Like, I don't want to be that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be all of these things that they're listing about me. And straight away, like, I messaged my friend and was like, oh, I hate these. This is why I never take these personality tests, because I always come up with these traits. And she's a really dear friend who knows me very well, and she straight off like flipped them and was like, well, you see that and you're labeling this trait in this negative way. I see this trait in you this way, which to me is really positive. And she did that with each one of them that I tried to be like, I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I don't like this. But she flipped them, right? Like she was able to flip them because she knows me well. And she was able to flip them and say, well, actually, that's actually a trait I really admire in you. And this is why. You know, for one, it's something that she doesn't have herself, or that she aspires to be, or something. But it was also one of those moments for me of kind of reflecting in those times when I've tried to be something that I'm not, like not my whole self, like not super authentic to Sharla. Those are the moments I've been really unhappy in my life, like really low, right?
Yes.
And reflecting on that, I thought, well, maybe, like you said, maybe instead of like trying to push those traits away, maybe I really need to just embrace them, because they're not going away. They're not going away, obviously.
They haven't, for all the personality traits that you've had. You're aware they haven't gone away.
Yeah. But I think you're right. Like somehow we get that message, whether it's from friends or family members or society, we get that message that those traits about ourselves are not okay, or they're not good. Only, we only define them as being bad traits. But that's not necessarily true.
No, it's not. It's actually not true. It's only our perception of those traits that are negative. It's actually, they're not negative or positive, really. They're just traits that we have a lot of times. Yeah. That's a journey. That's a journey that I'm still continuing on myself. Yeah. And then lately, what I found with those traits that I don't like is I think about it as those traits, I actually have developed them because of survival reasons a lot of times. Maybe I'm more controlling, or maybe I'm anxious, but actually they link to my survival maybe when I was younger, of my environment I grew up in. So it's being able to have a lot of self-compassion when working with those traits. It's really important to see them for what they really are, rather than judging them for what they are.
Well, and when you said that, like it like clicked something in my mind of like, it's a survival trait. Like a lot of them, you're right. Like they are, like they have, instead of seeing them as negative, like seeing them as, that's what's helped me get to where I am today. Right? Like that trait, like whether it's good or bad or positive or negative, like whatever, like that's helped me get through the journey. Like that's helped me get to where I am today. And so why would I want to shun it or push away from it? Right? Like, really, like you said, like it has in a lot of ways gotten me through the difficult times, the more challenging times in life. So like why push it away? Why am I trying to like say no? I don't want to be that. I don't know. right?
It's hard work though. So it's such hard work because when we bring that trait that we don't like, if there is like a physical discomfort going like, oh, I don't want this, like it's all tightening up in my shoulders and in my chest, and I have to like really breathe in order to work with it, you know. That's what I found. And I think that's difficult for people. And that's why we find it so hard to embrace all parts of ourselves, because that means when you embrace parts of ourselves that we really find like resistance to.
Yeah, and I guess I think it for me a lot of it goes back to like why am I feeling resistance to it? Like where did I get the message that that wasn't okay to be? Right? Like I was saying, like when I, you know, sitting there like trying not to love learning, trying to look less intelligent, less into books, you know, like where did I get that message? Because it wasn't from me. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like that wasn't like just pop in my head one day. Do you know what I mean? And so like for me, yeah, it's like going back to like and if you can kind of pinpoint it or kind of be open to the idea that like it's an external thing, right? That's telling you that trait isn't good. Then you can do that and say, but what do I, like you said, what do I want internally? Like what feels good to me internally? Like that uncomfortableness that I have about that part of myself, is it really me saying I don't like that? Or is it the message that I've gotten out here? Right?
Yeah.
Or really the messages I'm choosing to listen to out here. Right?
Yes.
Because not everybody was like, oh, Sharla, like learning is dumb. Like it's so stupid that you want to read books all the time. Right? But the people I'm choosing to listen to told me that. Right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's like a very external versus internal process. Right? If I were to listen to myself, like I love to learn. And like I said, like it feels so comforting and transformative and all of those wonderful, beautiful, that's how I feel inside. But, you know, like, and so I do, I think it really like, what message am I listening to? Who's my listening to really?
Are we listening to? And that requires so much self-awareness, really.
Yeah.
To be able to identify that. Like, do you have any tips or tricks for people that are listening for something like this? Because it's not easy to separate.
No, it's not easy. And I think one of the biggest things for me that helps me, and I know it helps a lot of the people I work with, is really being more in touch with how emotions actually process in your experience, right? So we get really into our heads, right? Into our cognitive processes, get very deep into those. But a lot of times we fail to recognize that emotions are not a cognitive process, right? Like they're a physiological experience that our bodies have. And so for me, like if we talk about like self-awareness, to me, self-awareness is I am self-aware of how my body experiences emotions, right? Because if I'm hearing something out here, I can go to the thought process and kind of go, oh, okay, well, let me analyze that and let me like break it down and figure out, right? But if I go in my body's kind of like, I like to think of it as like my truth teller. Like if I feel, if something fits with me, if I hear a truth or a statement or something, if my body likes it, like how is my body going to respond? Right? Like, is it going to get all tense and uncomfortable and my stomach going to be in knots, or is it going to feel very light and energetic and buoyant and, you know, like it wants to move? And everyone's going to experience different emotions or different reactions unique to them, right? But if you're like completely cut off from that, then you're just up in your head. And I think that's where it gets really confusing. Because, right? Like your mind can take you all different kinds of places and convince you something that you really don't believe, right? Really, or you're. it's very powerful that way.
Yeah, definitely. Like analogy that I have got is like it's almost like my brain's dragging my body along for what my brain wants to do, and that's when I'm not being authentic. That's when I'm actually not being. I'm just doing. I'm not being and not body aware of what is going on.
Yeah. And I always tell people to like start small. Like when you get up for the morning for breakfast, and people giggle at me when I say this, but like really ask your body, like, what do you want to eat? You know, like, what do you really want to put in your body this morning? Do you really want to eat that piece of toast or that banana? Like, and how do you know if you want to eat it? Is it because your mind says, oh, bananas are really healthy for you, they have potassium and, you know, right? Like, or does your mouth start to salivate, and does your body have those hunger cues that tell you that you're hungry? And, you know, like, does that all actually happen? Or is it just up here? Right. And I think for me, like, that self-awareness starts with just those little tiny, like, we get to make so many decisions throughout the day as human beings, like so many. And so many of those are just on autopilot.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's just what I do. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm, you know, like, and before you realize you've done your whole day on autopilot and not really been aware or cognizant in your body of what you chose to do or what you chose not to do. So to me, self-awareness, it's got to start way back over here, right? Before you can ask kind of like those big questions of like, who am I? And like, what personality traits do I want to embrace? And what, you know, like, to me, that's so far down the road of just taking a moment and really understanding what goes on in your body and what you want and what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, taking a moment, allowing that space to be. I think a lot of times our heads don't allow it because we think it's not aligned to what we want to achieve.
Exactly. No, you're spot on there. Like, it is. And it also, anytime I bring that up with people, they're like, oh, but that's so much work to like think about every decision. And I'm like, you don't have to think about every decision, but you got to start somewhere. If, you know, it's like, if you want to be healthy and exercise, you're not going to get up one morning and run 10K and be amazing, right?
Gotta
it's got to be step by step, one process after another, and then you get good at it, right? And then you'll have babies and forget, like I did, or have another big life change or trauma or crisis, and you'll forget, and then you'll have to come back and be like, okay, how did I get back in shape after that last baby? Oh, I started walking, and then I moved to running, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same with like our mental health, our mental well-being.
Yes.
We have to get back on. We have to get back on the treadmill again and do those small steps one little bit at a time, and be patient and kind with yourself, even if we fall off. Yeah.
Wow, this is very inspiring, Sharla. We can just like keep talking. Oh wow, 40 minutes have gone really quickly. Yeah, you've got so much wisdom in you about what are the tips and tricks for people to start being more body aware, to be more self-aware, as well as being embracing that authentic self, of like truly experiencing. Like that's beautiful. I'm so proud of your journey as well, to continue redefining who you are and redefining what you're putting your efforts into as well. Yeah. So let me ask online if there's any questions from the live listeners. Otherwise, we'll go into the quick fire question to wrap up.
Okay. Yeah.
A change. So my first quick fire question for you, Sharla, is what is your favorite pastime activity?
I love to go for a walk. Like, if it's a hike, I love to, either put on music or a podcast or something. If it's not reading a book, right, which I love, but lately my favorite pastime maybe it came from like this lockdown, but like to get on my running shoes and honestly like 2-3 hour walk and just walk and kind of get out of my head, right? Like be just in the moment, experiencing the movement and being there. That's what I love lately.
That sounds lovely. That sounds like meditation and mindfulness for you.
Oh,
And
yeah, it is for sure.
Yeah. What's something that people don't know without people often get wrong about you if they don't know about you? Just something interesting.
I think that's a hard one. Immediately when you say that, I go into my head of like what my partner has said of like, oh, like people made this assumption, like instead of, starts like my insecurities straight off the bat, because I think a lot of times maybe I think people think I'm more confident than I am. That I think people see me as having everything all together, and I'm not. I'm still on my own personal journey. I'm still trying every single day to be authentic, to be myself. And I think especially being in the therapist role, like you get seen as, oh, you have all the answers. So you must be, you're in that position of authority for sure. And it's not like I'm trying just as hard. I do have some information that helps, but I still have to put the effort in, right?
Yes.
Nothing that I've gained in my life has been without serious effort, just lots of effort. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you so much for that beautiful honesty. Like that's, feeling the insecurities coming, feeling like, oh, take a breath. You're practicing right in front
Deep
of
belly breath.
Yeah, deep belly breath. Yeah. How about what's the best piece of wisdom that you have received from other people, or advice that you've received from others?
That's a great question. I think one of the best relational advices, and I've heard it in different forms over the years, but one of the best relational advices that I've heard that I still use for myself is the idea that throughout life, whether it's with your partner or your friends, that Esther Perel, if you know who she is, she made a statement once. I love her. She said you're going to, throughout the course of your life, have 2 to 3 to 4 significant adult relationships, and they might all be with the same person, meaning that like you are always changing. Your partner is always changing. Your friends are always changing. And you need to allow that growth in yourself and that growth in other people. And don't assume that you know them because you knew them before.
Wow.
So I love that. And it's very applicable in the work I do, but it's very applicable in my own life too, with the people that I love and that I exist in.
Yeah. Wow, that's really, really powerful to remember that, so that we can catch ourselves when we're like, oh no, that person's not what we expect them to be.
Yeah. No, and they aren't, right? Because we would hope that we're all gonna learn and grow and change. Right.
Amazing. And one last question is, if you had a magic wand, what would you do with that wand?
That's really funny that you say that, because I always say to my clients, anyone that knows me too knows that I really love boundaries. I really love a healthy boundary. And I always say to everyone, I don't have a magic wand. I can't change that for you. I can't change it for myself. Like, you got to do it. Like, I don't have a magic wand. So if I had a magic wand, I think for me, I would just love. That's such a hard question, because immediately when I say it, I feel like the negative side. I think I would love the opportunity to be with to travel. I don't know. Like if I had a magic wand, to travel and see people that I love, that I miss, like family that's very far away, friends that are very far away. I really love people, and I really love the connections that I made, people that are very close with, and I miss not seeing people in real life. So I think maybe that's what it would be able to see people real life whenever I wanted to, because I had a magic wand to do it.
Wow, that would be pretty cool. Straight away seeing them. And my God, I just love talking to you, Sharla, because you're just so real. Authentic about what you're experiencing. So if you wanted to find out more about Sharla, then do go to Ahua Wellbeing website to see what they've got on. Yeah, because what Sharla and Mona do is put on events and tools and guidances for working mums to help achieve work-life balance. So it's really amazing work that they're doing there. And if you have enjoyed the session, then do join more for the Saturday live sessions at 11 a.m. New Zealand time. Next week, the book that I'm going to be doing best bits or summary on is actually, it's very fitting to what we talked about. Oh, geez. To what we talked about today. It's Brene Brown's book of Daring Great.
Oh, I love her. Don't you love her?
Oh, she's so authentic. I was like thinking about, why do I love her so much more than the other coaches or other therapists that are around? It's because she is just so real. We can relate a lot to what she says, and sometimes you just go like, yes, I'm not perfect at that. And it's amazing. So do join for that session, and I've got more live guests coming up as well, some New Zealanders of the year that are coming up, so that I'm really, really excited about. And if you wanted to redefine your grind and find your purpose, then you join some of my programs that I've got on my website at su.org. There's one called Redefine Now, which is redefining your habits, your routines, gaining that mindfulness and self-compassion, a lot of components that we talked about. This is a short program. And there's also a longer program that is finding yourself, the purpose that you have in life, and that confidence and self-love that you need to continue on this meaningful journey. So thank you so much for everyone that has tuned in today. And great thank you to Sharla Watene. It's amazing always talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Bye to all the listeners.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.